Hey, I'm bringing on a new guest today. I found from KetoCon and on Instagram, Elizabeth Bright, and she has this book that I found interesting. I still need to read. Good Fat is Good for Women in Menopause. So we're going to talk about kind of a keto carnivore food plan for men and women, hopefully. And I always like to tie in the men because half my listeners are men, so I don't want to lose them talking about female stuff all the time. But you are probably knowing some females that are athletes, and we continue to talk about how to fuel, train, perform our best as endurance athletes, aging athletes, and then the female athlete versus male athlete. Different for everybody, but different for gender, different for age group. But I found it interesting to bring on Elizabeth to talk about carnivore and healthy fats and how we can improve hormone health. So let me pause and bring her on. Here we go. All right. I've got Elizabeth Bright on the podcast to talk about my favorite topics: nutrition, fat, protein, thyroid, cortisol, adrenal function, hormone balance, menopause, all this good stuff. As I'm 51, 52 this year already. I would say I just turned 50, but Elizabeth Bright, come on the show and share all that you have to share. How good fat is good for women in menopause, your book and your carnivore research and hormone balance and all that. We want to know it all.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on, Debbie. And I'm 60, just turned 60. I went into menopause at 52, which is what inspired me to write the book, because I was horrified how menopause was depicted in society, by the medical industry, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I did a deep dive into the research of how the history of menopause, how it was treated by the Greeks from there to now. So that's the basis of my book. And what really is, what are causing menopausal symptoms associated with menopause is a decrease in adrenal function that we burn through our teens on. That's the root cause of menopausal symptoms, not the reduced production of estrogen and progesterone, et cetera, in the ovaries, because all our lives, our adrenals are producing those hormones.
Yeah. And so it's more looking at, we always look at the root cause. So it's not the hormones, it's what happens when the ovaries start to retire and the adrenals take over the job. And so that we need to support the adrenals.
The adrenals are making all those hormones from fetus till we die. They're making progesterone, estrogen, et cetera. The ovarian production is only necessary for fertility. So literally, if you fertilize an egg, bam, that's when you need ovarian, progesterone, and estrogen. Every other time in our life, it's the adrenals that are synthesizing from DHEA, the progesterone, the testosterone, the estrogen, et cetera. Of course, down that beautiful steroid cascade is split into immune function, autoimmune, and immune, which is the cortisol, right? And then there's the sex steroids on the right. So, of course, if you're burning through cortisol all the time and you're not eating enough fat, how can you have enough DHEA to make the sex steroids, which we need all our lives? So,
so that most people they have that low hormone function, but they're not addressing what to support or how to repair it versus just taking hormones.
Yeah, exactly. I don't believe in taking synthetic exogenous hormones. I think we should be able to eat in a way as we were born to make our hormones out of the fat we eat. And there are regulatory systems that can get convoluted, obviously. Thyroid hormones involved in that, because thyroid hormone regulates aromatization, which is when each hormone is turned into another molecule. From progesterone to DHEA, you need thyroid hormone to make that conversion.
Yeah.
So that's how that ties in.
So we get this whole metabolic chaos. And I think I don't know, after 40, I'm sure men have it too a different way, but women, we tend to see all sorts of things go on.
Okay. So in adolescence, we're forming sexual characteristics, and by default, that will increase a necessity of thyroid hormone and iodine, okay, by 40%. Each pregnancy requires, again, a 40% increase in iodine and thyroid hormone. So sexual characteristics are more, there are more sexual characteristics form in an adolescent female than there are in males. They need more fat in order to go through that period. So, and we're having, our cycles. Men don't go through that. They have they have cycles. They have, I would say both male and females are on a 30-day cycle for production of hormones, right? But that's why I believe women need more fat from adolescence on. And what are adolescents doing? At 15, what did I do? I fasted for 3 days I would fast constantly till it stopped working. So I set myself up for later when I got into Kung Fu and was fighting people and I became a Kung Fu master, et cetera, et cetera. 40 years old, I was not able to build muscle and I was tired and I was in pain. And from adolescence, I set myself up for that. I wasn't eating a high fat carnivore diet. I was eating mostly plant, lots of salads and a little bit of tiny piece of meat or fish at night. I wasn't eating the wet meat.
Yeah, I thought it was so healthy for years, having just big giant salads, and I was the healthy person everyone knew of, oh, Debbie's so good and so clean eating and didn't eat protein and was scared of most meats, which I partially still am. But it's learning how to work on nutritional therapy first. You're saying, I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner. We always say start north to south. It's what you eat, when, why, and how, and where, but also, choosing the right foods, but also proper digestion of it as well. So do you address that?
Sure. If you don't digest it, you're not going to turn it into energy. So absolutely, digestion is crucial.
So how do you start?
Got high cortisol though, can you? Because if your cortisol's high, you won't be able to digest because you'll be in a fight or flight state when you're supposed to be running, and all your blood's going to your muscles and to be in a fight or flight state. So nothing is being digested.
So how do you start with people? So let's kind of go backward. If you have, most people, I see their blood chemistry panel and their Dutch test and everything. Most every female athlete client I work with has low thyroid, but we're looking at, is it thyroid conversion issues or gut issues or, the why behind the thyroid. But so say broadly hypothyroid, and then they have cortisol if it's high or low. What are your strategies to start people first on what you're eating, proper digestion, or is it first to work on stress management, or all at once? How do you kind of find to work with people?
All at once. I prefer a salivary cortisol test to the Dutch test.
Yeah, heard that.
And I start with a high fat carnivore diet to get people, as I use it as an anti-inflammatory mechanism. And if people are usually low energy, you can only make energy out of sugar or out of fat. So our body does not like to make energy out of protein because we would be cannibalizing ourselves. So if you're on a which I would not agree with, a long fast, you might start making energy out of protein because your body thinks it's not going to get any food and it's going to start cannibalizing itself. So your body prefers to make energy out of glucose or fat. You provide enough fat, then you'll be in ketosis and you'll be making not only energy, but also hormones out of fat, because your poor liver has to make the brain covers, the myelin sheaths, all that's made out of lipids, and all the hormones are made out of LDL. So I look at the cholesterol levels. If they're too low, it's a problem. Definitely a problem, because what are you going to make your hormones out of? Made out of LDL. I look at if there is a thyroid conversion issue. I think too much emphasis is put on selenium. You get enough selenium in 4 egg yolk, so it's more bioavailable than a supplement. And then iodine. The raw material for thyroid hormone is iodine, and it's almost impossible to get it in from our food today. from anywhere
Do you
today.
do you suggest that kelp, or what type of source of iodine do you
No,
go for as a
Lugol's
carnivore?
iodine. Lugol's iodine. No, it's not because it's
Mm.
kelp is from the sea, and the sea is, I mean, I think a cow that's eaten grass most of its life is much cleaner than fish because it's dragged out of the sea
Mm.
because of all the mercury and all the chemicals in the
Yeah.
sea. So kelp is renowned for being full of mercury. It does not give you, Lugol solution has been around since 1890. So it's
What's it
been
called?
the Lugol solution. Jean Lugol came up with
Oh,
this a way of making iodine into a liquid solution. So
hmm,
it's potassium iodide and elemental iodine combined with water. So you can take drops of it.
great. Yeah, so that helps because I think, you know, getting what we need instead of taking supplements, capsules, and pills and all that, I rather start with nutrition and then be able to get the right food to build your
Absolutely.
hormones and digest it
Absolutely.
properly. But as you're saying, you can't digest food in a stressed state. So if it's, taking some breaths and relaxing, shifting from that sympathetic, we're so on the go in that, overachiever, ambitious, we're kind of
Yeah.
sympathetic dominant society that I think to shift people into that parasympathetic state before they eat, because they're always trying to, rush in lunch and try to get back. I always say, look at the Europeans, we go to Europe and you have to ask for the bill because they just leave you there for hours if you want to.
Right,
We're
right.
used
While
to
you
like 10
digest.
minutes, I'm out. It's like, come on, can we get out of here? We got things to do. But, the Europeans, and you're in Europe, and, just the way we eat in North America, I think is just so fast paced that we're probably always having digestive issues from how we eat is a big half of it.
Definitely, definitely. But there's another point though, is that your cortisol, I mean, I'm sure you've seen the cortisol arc, right? So
Yes.
it's highest in the morning. So I would recommend to exercise in the morning and not at night. A lot of people are trying to stuff their exercise in because they work or whatever their hours are, but you need to be exercising when your cortisol is highest. Otherwise, you're going to be in a stress state. If you're exercising at 7 p.m., when your cortisol is, the level should be at the nadir lowest, so your melatonin can be produced and you can go to sleep, you're totally messing up your circadian rhythm because you should not be having producing adrenaline at that hour. Your body can
Yeah.
handle being in a sympathetic state, fight or flight state in the morning because cortisol is at its highest at that
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, I love, I'm a morning exerciser. I get up early, I go to the gym at 5:30 a.m., but I go to bed at 8 o'clock at night because of that. But I know Tuesday nights, for example, we have track night. San Diego is where I am, and they have a track club that is really good for speed work, but I hate going. And plus, we never can make it, but it's 6 p.m. at night. And you're in a speed workout, which is supposed to be, high heart rate, low heart rate. And I
Yeah,
just think it's the worst thing for your body to do speed
it is.
workout at night and then go home and try to go to bed. It does not result in good sleep quality for sure. It's the opposite of what we should be doing.
Exactly, exactly. You'll be go to bed wired but tired because your cortisol is high
Yeah.
when it should. Yeah. So
So, talking about hormone balances for men and women and athletes as we age and menopausal women, I think we're feeling the low estrogen and progesterones. We're gaining fat, and it's harder to put muscle on. What do you find is kind of a good protocol or get people started on? All right, you say that perimenopause isn't a thing, and if we were trying to get I'm in that in between stage. It's 51. I haven't reached full menopause, which is 1 year without your cycle officially, right? And then get to the other side. What's the best way to get through this as an athlete who's doing the lifting weights, doing cardio, but maybe should, not do cardio and do train differently? So anything on this transition period of time to enhance the process?
okay, so well, for women at least, absolutely, we would also address men. But what I did, because I went into menopause at 52, and I had just closed my kung fu school, so I actually took a year off from exercise, and I ate a lot of fat. I came
Mhm.
I came up with a protocol that was 80-20, because that would address the sort of heal the past since adolescent years of the avoidance of fat, which we all have done. And what you're trying to do is sort of jumpstart your adrenals, which may have been abused and fatigued by all the exercise we did and the cholesterol we avoided, so that you do have adequate hormone production and via DHEA synthesis because you're not using the ovarian progesterone and estrogen. You're only using it for fertility. So it really just comes to, and it's an accumulation of time that gets you to the point when all of a sudden 10 to 15% reduction in it's just not even, it's such a tiny amount. To me, it's really an accumulation of basically your body says, because menopause we evolved to have menopause, so we could become grandmothers and live to be 100 and keep trucking, keep thinking, taking care of stuff. I mean, that's the point of my book, is that and menopause is a positive evolution so that we live longer. Having babies is nutritionally expensive. Chimpanzees live until they're 50 and they're fertile until they're 50. So they die because having babies is nutritionally expensive. So our body is programmed, we evolved to go into menopause so that we would not have this nutritionally expensive, be able to procreate and live our lives and become grandmothers and do all the cool stuff we can do. I mean, think of all the things you can do when you're not having babies, right? So,
yes.
And also, this unfortunately, they only figured this out in the 80s. They only figured it out. Fernand Labrie in 81 figured out that something he called intracrinology was happening in peripheral tissues. We were making all these hormones all the time, all our lives, nothing to do with ovarian production. And by that time, people were already selling hormones since the 30s. They were selling hormones to women because menopause was seen, it was assumed that it was a terrible thing when it isn't. It's actually a great thing.
Yeah.
So my approach is a high fat diet initially, probably stay with a higher fat diet, but initially because it's also an anti-inflammatory protocol for me with many of my patients who come with all kinds of issues. As far as
anti-inflammatory, sorry to interrupt, but anti-inflammatory, you're saying because it removes the, refined sugars and white flour.
It lowers cortisol. If it's high, it brings cortisol up if it's low. So if
with the more fat.
Yeah. If you have high cortisol, you are in a degenerative state because your body, high cortisol burns brain neurons. People who take asthma, inhalers and cortisone shots, et cetera, obviously, it pulverizes bones and it burns brain neurons. So your body the first thing that happens is a DHEA is a blanket thrown over the cortisol in order to lower it. That's the first response. That's why people say they have DHEA levels. And it's not true. The DHEA levels go down with age. I'm proof of that. My DHEA levels are great because of all the fat I eat. So the blanket of DHEA goes on the cortisol, tries to lower it. But if they do not stress, chronic stress is not alleviated, then DHEA will go down. And eventually ACTH, which is the pituitary hormone that is telling your body to secrete cortisol, will stop. It will stop telling the adrenals to secrete cortisol because it does not want you to be in a high cortisol state. So then you have adrenal burnout, what they call adrenal fatigue.
Burnout. Yeah, right. I've experienced that.
Right. So that's why the cortisol, we have, there are studies that show that cortisol, comparing a high fat diet to a high protein and standard American diet, athletes doing 2 weeks of training, the ones that recovered faster were the ones on the high fat, whose cortisol lowered faster were on high fat diets. So it has the amazing ability to lower high cortisol and also lower high cortisol and replenish low cortisol.
Wow, interesting. Love that.
So men. Do you want to talk about men?
Yeah, okay. Men always want to have attention too.
I know. Well, they of course they need attention. They need less fat. So my husband basically follows the same protocol that I do, but he eats less fat. So he'll have his ton of butter and our decaf for breakfast, but he will go on a 80, 90-kilometer bike ride, and he'll have, we'll both have protein in the morning if we're doing our respective sports. They need, this whole process, I think, functions the same for men, but I think that they need less fat than women.
Yeah, because they don't have as many need for the hormones to fuel them with the healthy fats.
Right. So we have these, obviously, all our lives, we're sort of have a default to be reproductive creatures, but these hormones are doing so many other things. I mean, they're now finding that allopregnanolone, which is comes from progesterone, right, naturally, okay, is also works as an antidepressant. So instead of just eating it, getting it from fat and having your body naturally understand, hey, let me make some allopregnanolone from this progesterone in order to handle stress and anxiety. No, let's put it in a pill and give it to postpartum mothers because their progesterone levels are crashing when they're postpartum, which is normal because progesterone is high during pregnancy so that your body's immune system doesn't reject the fetus. If we are balanced, our bodies figures this out all by itself.
Yeah, that innate intelligence we talk about and how to create homeostasis the body so that it does what it's supposed to do when it knows how to work. If we just find the right parts to feed it the right amount of food to get everything working with the right nutrients.
And not stress it.
Not stress it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty
and that's the hardest part for everyone, I think so many people try to do a low carb, carnivore, keto carnivore, primal type of food plan, eat real food, I say, and it doesn't always work. But that could be because they're chronically stressed out all day long and they're just tired but wired type of overdrive mode all day, and they're not breaking their food down. Because a lot of people have trouble breaking down a lot of fat. And I have a lot of people that have like HCl deficiency and poor digestive enzyme use that it might be because a result of chronic stress.
Well, if you think about, you said that you have people come to you with low thyroid issues. T3 actually regulates how much vasoactive peptide you have, which is the enzyme this peptide that decides who the good bacteria, the bad bacteria, who lives, who dies, literally. T3 regulates hydrochloric acid, how much you have, how much lipase you have, how much it regulates your digestive tract. All the digestive mechanisms are regulated by thyroid hormone. So the quantity that you have may be diminished if you have low T3.
Wow, that's so amazing. I just love being a health investigator is my new kind of focus, my job, and for athletes, and just how we can put the missing pieces of the puzzle together to help people feel their best. And it's so fascinating how, traditional medicine, they just look at, this is low, or they don't even know what everything's normal usually. But if they see anything high or low, I know,
wide,
way too wide. And so they take medications, but instead of looking at, oh my gosh, if my T3 is low, how do you get everything in sync? Because it's just that orchestra, all the players need to be working in sync.
Yeah, orchestra is a perfect word to use for that, because that is exactly what it is. It's all about balance, and your body's always trying to achieve balance, which is why medications are an issue, because they will suppress. So food is not going to suppress. Medication that suppresses a function, there'll always be a negative feedback mechanism that's going to kick you in the butt because you've suppressed the function with medication. Your body will not make steroid hormones out of avocado. It's not cholesterol. It has to be cholesterol.
Oh. Okay, so tie-in, go ahead, finish your thought, and then maybe talk about what foods are good, healthy fats.
That's what I'm saying. They have to be bioavailable, which, that's what you were mentioning before, right? So we know that we can't get iron from spinach because it's not heme iron. So the more bioavailable it is, the more your body will accept it. It will not take a synthetic as homemade. So you can think of your body basically as, you're going to dinner at your Italian grandmother's house and you only eat what she makes because that's what she's always made. So you go to somewhere else and that's not what you were raised on. Your body is looking for what it evolved to make. We're born with a DNA template that we all have it as humans. We evolved to have it. So we all kind of have to follow the same circadian rhythm. We all need these nutrients in order to make these hormones and have everything balanced. If we suppress it with a synthetic, we're going to throw everything off.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about what to eat then. So if we're trying to eat a hormone building food plan that's going to feed our hormones and help our adrenals and our thyroid and our gut health, and then of course in result feel our best every day and look our best.
Right.
And I'm always about the second half of my life, I want to be, even better than my first half of the life. So what's some
and you
good
will because of
suggestions?
menopause.
Yeah, I know. Just get through that year. So with your suggestions of like looking at, everyone wants to know their macro percentages of macros, do you have estimates? And then, well, what type of foods are going to be best for hormones or anything specific?
Well, high fat
Timing.
carnivore. That's definitely what I'm going to. We know that fat soluble vitamins are going to come from the fat you eat. Vitamin D, all of that is coming from the fat you eat if you're able to synthesize it properly. Vitamins and minerals, water soluble, are coming from the meat you eat. None of these are going to be as bioavailable in any other kind of food. So I'm not saying you have to be 100% carnivore. I'm saying that we evolved to eat mostly meat and fat. And when we ran out, we grabbed that thing over there. Some people died testing vegetables, but fruit don't have anti-nutrients, but they are stimulants. So if somebody has adrenal issues, they might have to avoid fruit because it's a stimulant, because it's a sugar. It's basically pure sugar. So the balancing act is figuring out what if you have, and then there's a sympathetic nervous system. What if you're hypersensitive to certain foods because you're having issues? So my program is starting people off with this high-fat carnivore elimination diet and then introducing food slowly to see which ones don't cause inflammation.
Yeah, for 10 years, I couldn't eat fruit. And then I actually just was in Kona, Hawaii for 2 weeks, and I was so happy to be able to have some papaya in the evening and not get a headache and enjoy it with some fat, because I just still eat fat with it. But I forever just could not do any fruit at all because it would just spike my blood sugar, give me a big headache in 5 seconds. So it is probably related to cortisol.
Yeah, definitely. So you're mitigating the cortisol because you're eating it with fat.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always find, they hear about doing more keto carnivore that you need the organ meat to get all the nutrients. And do you find that you have to have organ meat? Because I don't do organ meat. I can get it in a capsule, but I am not the one to eat the sweetbreads and all that.
I don't think it's necessary. I think so. There is more bang for your buck per gram of liver than there is in muscle meat. But if we're eating enough muscle meat, we're not going to need the bang for your buck. I will have people who have severe iron deficiencies who used to have iron infusions, but they don't and need them anymore because I put them on a short protocol of eating 100 grams of beef liver for a month. But I won't do that for long because I don't think it's necessary. Capsule, iron is kind of a water soluble nutrient. So I don't know about capsules of dried. I make beef jerky. I know that it's devoid. That's my snack. I know that it's devoid of water soluble vitamins and minerals because it's been drying in the dehydrator for 8 hours. So it's just a pure protein snack. But I'm just saying, again, 100 grams or 50 grams of liver is going to give you the iron, whereas the capsules, I'm not so sure about. I don't think it's necessary. I haven't had any issues with people not eating organ meats, shall we say.
Okay. All right. And then, so if we're looking at the macro balance, protein to fat, what kind of percentage is a good range estimate to start people on? And then do you have carbs in there and berries and different things, or just strict?
Depends on where you're coming from, what you're trying to do. I myself, 60, don't have any issues, go paddleboarding, do, to 6 to 8K. It's different. It's not like on flat water, so it's waves and winds and stuff,
That's hard.
So I'm pretty much averaging 76, 24, 76 fat, 24 protein. I calculated a couple of times in the past few weeks because I actually went to the gym. I started a gym in March, and I built a bunch of muscle, and everybody is always saying, not everybody, but many of my carnivore physician colleagues are saying that you can't build muscle if you're not eating a lot of protein, if you're eating a high fat carnivore diet. So I wanted to prove that, heck, I just built a bunch of muscle in 2 months and put up pictures to prove it, because here I am eating this high fat carnivore diet and I'm building muscle and I'm 60. So for me, that's working. Obviously, everybody's going to be different. If somebody comes with a lot of inflammation and imbalance, then they're going to need more fat for a while. Not forever, but to get them to the point where their adrenals are okay and they're not having these knee-jerk inflammatory reactions to everything.
Do you do lab testing, figure that out?
How do you mean for my?
Well, if you're saying that, to test, do you test them at all through the way to know if they're feeling better, to what you're just talking about?
I use a salivary cortisol test. A lot of my patients are hypothyroid, so would definitely test that. Usually I can tell from their previous tests, many people who are hypothyroid are also low iron and low vitamin D because they're hypothyroid, because it takes thyroid hormone to synthesize iron and vitamin D. I go mostly by symptoms because a blood test is going to be I use blood tests as well, but symptoms are always going to be the most important thing.
Yeah, for sure. I love our nutritional therapy. We have a NutriQ form intake form that you just 309 questions, signs and symptoms, and I can get so much information from that. It's like, what do you feel? How do you react? And it can correlate with the organ functions and all that. But that's a great way to get started with someone without having to spend money on lab tests if they can't afford it, but at least get this information, go, okay, what are you feeling? And, how's your stool and how's your energy?
That's how they used to do it. Yeah. I look at people's tongues and eyes and skin, and, stretch marks are caused by zinc deficiency and et cetera. So all these kinds of things that when you went to a doctor who would look at your tongue and your eyes and feel your skin and the congestion and, dowager hump, things like that, then a blood test is not going to tell you that.
Yeah, I know. So I was interrupting you, but there's the percentages, and then you're talking about the healthy fats. Now, what type of fats you're saying you're doing? Say for you found 76% plus or minus you're doing of healthy fats. What are those? Kind of get examples for people
Animal
to get an
fat.
idea.
So I'm in Italy. I don't have White Oak Farms and all the stuff you guys in the US have. I actually have to order my meat from outside of Italy because Italian meat is very lean. And so I was getting Scottish beef for a while, and then Brexit happened and we can't get that anymore. So we're getting beef, we get like 17 kilos and cut it up and store it. So I make my beef jerky out of diaphragm. In English it's called hanger steak and skirt steak, which is a very fatty meat, and you cut it on sideways and it's just great for my really fatty beef jerky. I eat butter. I don't have, my butcher will not give me fat trimmings because he's using it for his sausages. So in the States, you can actually get fat trimmings from a butcher or order them from farms. Crunchy fat trimmings, and the fat, you put it in the air fryer and you not suet. So fat that actually the butcher's cutting off of the steaks that he sells because nobody wants fat except us high fat carnivores, throws it away. You can get it from a butcher who can give it to you, should give it to you for free because they're usually throwing it away. That in the air fryer is really good because it's crunchy because it has that membrane of protein on it. So I can't get that anymore. I got it from him for a while, but then he just refused to give it to me. So I depend on butter. Mostly
Do you
butter. It's
grass-fed butter? You probably get fresh butter down there, don't you?
it's grass fed. It's Beppino Uccelli. It's unsalted. It's the only one I like. And the meat is probably grain finished.
Hmm.
I
Yeah. So is that kind of that's your fat and your protein because you're getting just more
That's my
higher
fat, my
fat
protein.
cut.
I
So
don't need any
that's just all
carbs.
you eat.
Yeah, I don't need
Yeah.
any carbs. But that doesn't mean when my daughter visits me or I go to see my daughter who just had a baby in Scotland, I had a scone, yeah, with coffee. It doesn't mean that I won't ever eat carbs. I'm eating this way to ensure that I remain healthy and never get Alzheimer's, which is in my family.
Mhm.
And I just feel best this way.
Yeah. So it's being strict, but not so strict, allowing life to happen. And then do you tie
Sure.
in fasting with that, or do you say like a
Okay.
12-hour fast, or what's your take on that to put that if you need to reset? Because that's such a big topic.
Well, let
As
me
you went
just
to
add that
KetoCon.
I will have my clients, they don't have to eat like I eat, right? So my husband eats pork and chicken. He likes chicken. He likes pork. I just don't feel as satisfied eating pork and chicken. So we literally will have a chicken day and I'll just keep eating my beef. I might have a bite or two of the fatty skin, but that's me and that's him because he is okay with those. He feels satiated. I will have patients who want to stay this way. They feel best this way on the let's say the initial protocol I give them. Then I would like maybe to add egg yolk for them because egg yolk is again kind of like liver per square gram. It has a whole lot of nutrition in it. A lot of people can't eat egg yolk because it can be very inflammatory to a lot of people. So I'm not making my patients eat exactly like I eat. It just works for
Mhm.
me.
Yes.
Fasting, I'm famous for being the anti-faster. So I am against fasting, yes, because it will raise your cortisol levels. And I think that if you are on a high fat carnivore diet, autophagy is still happening, at night when you're not eating at night. I think your level of ketosis is enough to keep all those good mitochondrial reproduction invigorating processes happening. I think fasting for anybody who ends up in seeing me, working with me, I'm, as we say in Italian, in l'ultima spiaggia. I'm the last beach. They've tried everybody and everything. So they usually have uh, been fasting, tried fasting, done 14-day water fast, etc. They've done this and they felt worse. So that hasn't worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that cortisol is the reason.
That's why I was trying to research that because you should be on Dr. Mindy Pell's podcast to have a
We
good
were at the
conversation.
same, we were just at KetoCon together and that
KetoCon, I
a
know.
lot, but we
I can
didn't
connect you if you want to
chat.
talk to her. So I just find it interesting because I listen to what she says and other people. Then there's Dr. Stacy Sims, who's like anti all this for female athletes, and then the keto carnivore world. But I find when is fasting too much for people because we already have. When I do lab testing, you see people's cortisol levels are too high or too low. That are we
Mm.
adding more stress. So I was trying to research like what is the right amount that if you're fasting longer than say a lot of people are doing 15, 17, the 16-8 fasting that everyone talks about for intermittent fasting. But if you're already stressed out, is that going to mess you up? Like I used to do a lot of
Yeah.
fasting when 5 years ago when it started getting popular, but I was working out 3-4 times a day because that was my job and what I did for competitive athlete. And I think it made me worse and caused me more adrenal problems. So here's 10 years later, and I had to restart again, healing myself because I got into just eating fat, not focusing on protein as we do now, and exercising a lot on top of fasting 16 hours and just following that clock and not listening to my intuition and red flags. So I'm trying to teach people avoid doing my experiment I did to
Yeah.
myself because I had probably high cortisol and really low cortisol. And I'm always curious, like, well, what if should you do fasting if you're already stressed out, which majority of everyone is?
there's no way to avoid stress in our lives. There's no way. The only
No.
way we can do is support it by not fasting, because we are contributing to these stress levels that are in our society, which are horrendous stress levels. I mean, yeah, I live in Italy, a small city in Italy, and it's a lot different than, I mean, when I got to Austin, Texas, I was like, whoa, I
Culture
just can
shock.
just, yeah, in the sense that I just feel this tension of having to keep up with the Joneses that,
Yeah.
in Italy, it's not, I mean, but here we have the highest rate of juvenile diabetes, Debbie. So, the kids are everybody's really unhealthy because of all the pasta and the focaccia. So
Yeah.
my neighbors,
Bread
they're
diet.
all nuts, right? It's a terrible diet, but the lifestyle is definitely not as, especially living in a small city on the sea, not as it would be living in a city in the US. I think that I haven't found the science. I've done enough of the research, and I've just never had anybody benefit from it.
Well, what is fasting, unintentional fasting? Is it 12 hours to be normal? So it's not really fasting. It's just if you eat the right foods that fill you up and you're satiated. And I don't like to eat close to bedtime. Is it just 12 hours should be normal? Like, what is fasting when we're doing 16 hours or longer? What do you think
Well,
is,
we're not
what do you
eating.
call fasting?
I have people who can't sleep feel better because they get up and have a tablespoon of butter in the middle of the night. So they go back to sleep because they're waking up because the cortisol spikes. And when your cortisol spikes, your liver is going to produce a bunch of blood sugar. Then your insulin is going to produce a bunch of insulin. Your pancreas is going to produce a bunch of insulin, and then you're going to crash. You're going to crash even lower, and then you wake up again an hour later because you're just on this roller coaster of cortisol spikes. So this is where we have to move from sympathetic to parasympathetic, and food and fat being the food, bam, makes you parasympathetic. So you're able to sleep better. So somebody who sleeps great, they will go to bed at 8:30 and they wake up at 5:30 like you. If they don't wake up, then they're fasting. To me, sleeping is fasting.
It's
You
fasting.
fasted breakfast. What's breakfast? Break fast. That's what it is. So I just think we have to follow the circadian rhythm. If you look at that cortisol arc, that morning cortisol is at its peak between 7 and 9, right? That's when we're supposed to exercise. That's when we have to have enough fat in our system in order to be able to make that cortisol reach that level. If people have really high nighttime cortisol levels, they're going to have issues sleeping, or they're going to have, I have patients who have really high cortisol levels at night and don't have trouble sleeping, but there's something else going on with those high cortisol levels that can be degenerative.
So interesting. So if you eat just when you're hungry, then how do you space it out throughout the day? Are you saying to get the 30, 50 grams of protein every meal throughout the day and hit your protein goals that, like Dr. Gabrielle Lyon talks about, the 1 gram of protein per ideal body weight, and then put that in there. But then timing that with exercise is always my complication for myself and for others. Like if I'm working out, say at 12 o'clock going swimming, I'm not going to eat a steak, but I have to time it to digest it properly, say 3 hours beforehand. So I'm not swimming or exercising and regurgitating that food. So how do you time your meals?
You can't digest while your adrenaline's high because you're swimming,
No.
right? So
Yes.
that's the thing. Yeah, I understand that. My objective is to get people to just be natural about it and eat when they're hungry and eat when they feel like it. So that's the goal, is to be thirsty when you drink when you're thirsty and eat when you're hungry. So if I go most days, so it depends on the water for me, but I'd like to skip a day of paddleboarding because I don't want to exercise back to back, just because of my previous issues with when I was doing kung fu fighting and stuff that really messed me up because it was too cortisol-y, right? So but I have to be dependent on the water. If the water's crap, it's raining, and then for Tuesday it's sunny, I'm gonna go paddleboarding. So those days I'll eat protein in the morning, the rainy days when I don't exercise, I'm just going to have the butter and the decaf.
Mhm.
But I'll just
Yeah.
have a couple pieces of beef jerky.
The
So
bit long type of air dried jerky you make. Is that called
yeah, or
bit
my
long?
husband will have eggs. My husband, if he's going on 80 kilometer, he'll have an egg instead of his butter coffee decaf.
Yeah.
Of course,
So
he's going to
I
have
always,
cappuccinos on the way because he's Italian and he's stopping on the way.
that's why I don't know. I was clients, well, it's a client cycling in Mallorca. It's like, how do you stop and you have coffee halfway through, and usually all there is the croissant or the bread stuff that they eat there, like the
Yeah, he
British.
doesn't eat that stuff. He doesn't eat that stuff, but he'll have a decaf. He mostly drinks decaf now, which is pretty amazing because he's Italian. So, but but he'll stop and that in that milk in the cappuccino, if he has a cappuccino, there's lactose, there's a little bit of fat, there's a small amount of protein, and he'll sit in the sun for a bit and then he'll go on to do another 40K. So that for
Nice.
him is perfect. And he's 77.
Yeah, that's great life. That's a retirement life. Just ride around Europe and have your coffee, get back on your bike, leisure,
Yeah.
happy place. So with the nutrition timing, do you find, before workout, post workout, if that's what people, if they need to eat something before they work out, something easy to digest, you would have like an egg or half avocado or
Yeah.
something that's simple than a meat product?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that would be, I have a lot of people that I'm telling not to exercise or just to do weight resistance training right now because they're coming from
Cardio.
burnout. Yeah. So avoid
Yeah.
cardio and do resistance training and do it in the morning. And that's, people who need to heal a little bit more before they can do things like, you know,
That's what people need to hear, though. So, for my listeners, because they're endurance athletes, and when they have health issues, not to do more cardio because they're doing
it's,
Ironmans and marathons, not to do more than 45 minutes or just skip it and do like just warm up 10 minutes and do weights. What do you find works?
okay. So people can be addicted to adrenaline. I get people off
Yeah.
stimulants. Stimulants is adrenaline is a stimulant. So if I'm getting them
Yeah.
off of nicotine, alcohol, because I want to heal their adrenals, caffeine, I'm going to also have to get them off of adrenaline. And it's very, very hard for some people. The people who are already in burnout, who can't get out of bed anymore, they understand. They're like, yeah, okay, I'm going to get
I
off this
can't.
adrenaline because I can't make
Yeah.
it. I can't make the
Yeah.
adrenaline anymore. So I get you. The other people who need to learn this, basically, yes, I will say avoid more than 15 minutes of cardio and focus on resistance training because we
Mm-hmm.
know that at that 15-minute mark, you're in fight or flight state. Before, if you don't hit that 15-minute mark, if your heart rate is high for more than 15 minutes, you're going to go into hypersympathetic tone, fight or flight state.
Yeah. Important. And then do you track like heart rate variability scores for people to figure out they're sympathetic to parasympathetic?
No, I have people. No, I do
Keep it
heart rate.
simple.
Keep it simple. I do heart rate, sleep, symptom resolvement. That's mostly symptom resolution is a better word.
Mm.
No, not because I don't have. I mean, your clients are mostly endurance athletes. Mine are not.
Yeah. So my endurance athletes get all the gadgets. They come to me and they've got their Whoop and then their Garmin and their Aura and their Apple Watch.
Yes.
It's like
I
less
think
is
people, I
more,
mean,
less is more.
I do actually have former triathletes and former ultra marathoners, right? But I think that people can get caught up caught up in numbers. I would like you to wake up in the morning and tell me how you slept, how you feel, rather than send me
Depend
your
on again. Yeah.
numbers.
Yes. I think that's important. And we were just talking about that with my friend Brock in my last episode, that it was listen to yourself. Like if I look at this and it says, oh, your sleep score is bad and your numbers are bad, but you feel great. Are you going
Yeah,
to just not do
yeah,
anything, or are you going to embrace and go like, I feel really energetic today and
right.
do something that otherwise I would just take a rest day? But so you have to listen to your body and how you feel, but also maybe take
Absolutely.
note of what it says.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
some people need to able to learn how to listen to their body again, because they
Yeah,
have been
that's always a big problem. They don't know
stimulants.
how.
Right. So you get back to the point of being able to listen to your body, then you trust your body, and then you've got it covered once you learn how to trust your body again, because you've been
How do
misled
you,
for many years.
yeah. How do you learn how to listen to your body? Do you have any tips to people that like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm full. I don't know if I feel bad or I don't know. That's what I get.
Well, yeah, you want to have no inflammation. Inflammation will obviously give you the wrong signals, right? So that's going to be cortisol to some extent. Autoimmunity, any kind of autoimmune issue is going to give you the wrong signals. Just the fact that I mean, my protocol of ruminant only and fat only for a couple of weeks, and then you start introducing foods. That couple of weeks is removing all inflammation and all the possibility of you having an inflammatory reaction to a food that is causing an issue. And then your body, your immune system is strong enough to say, after that amount of time, heck no, I can't handle that egg white, or heck no, I can't eat that bacon. And then you've add another food, and oh, that's okay, that didn't mess me, that the inflammation, the joint pain didn't come back, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you have to teach your body to be able to tell you the signals, because you've
Mhm.
removed all the inflammation.
That's great tip. So when you're reintroducing foods after going more of a strict kind of high fat carnivore, are you adding in other foods? Like you don't do carbs, but do you have like sauerkraut or fermented foods in there and anything else? Or are you just sticking them being strict if they, I mean, it's more sustainability because a lot of people say I can stick with it 30 days, but then they kind of revert to old habits. How do you make it sustainable?
Right. I make it, well, okay. So people will usually ask me if this is okay, and I will tell them if it's okay or not. So part of it being okay is, do they have an inflammatory? Pickles are all of a sudden a big deal. People are asking about pickles. Sauerkraut, I've had a bit of an issue. Some people have been asking about sauerkraut. Fermentation, basically humans invented how, fermentation in order to be able to eat indigestible foods. So you're still making an indigestible food sort of digestible. It's not going to be as digestible as a piece of steak. So cabbage, any kind of brassica is going to interfere with the iodine absorption. So those you should just stay away from anyway. Quercetin interferes with iodine absorption. There's all kinds of supplements out there. Vanilla is an opiate. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we know. If you dive deep into what foods do, what plants do, you may, I'm not saying that a cookie with vanilla is going to turn you into but I did have a patient who teaches autistic children, tell me that the children really were almost addicted to vanilla. So you have to sort of see where you're at and the effect the food has on you. I want it to be sustainable. Absolutely. If they're eating mostly, and I always say, if you are eating mostly meat and a good amount of fat, then if you eat some food that isn't optimal, that's not going to undo the healing you've achieved by eating this way.
Yeah, I think maybe we've gone as athletes that gone into keto and not eating enough protein over the years and doing too much fat without the protein with it. And I think that low energy availability, we were not eating enough. People like me that were exercising a lot and had an active job, owning my own fitness studio. And then when we start to do OMAD and doing just the fat coffee all morning and just have one meal and fasting too long and not getting enough calories in, but not getting enough protein in, it can be just another source of stress perhaps. And you're just adding too much to that beaker of stress.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are 3 meals. I think 3 meals and 2 snacks in the beginning, and then no snacks, and then you're left with 3 meals, or maybe 2 meals. And if I consider my decaf and butter my meal, so, but if I'm working 8 hours in front of Zoom with clients, I'm going to run over there and get a piece of jerky with butter, because I've even been using my brain to figure things out for an hour. So that's definitely using energy, and
Yeah.
I need to replenish it.
Great. Well, I know we're out of time already, but where can people learn more and get your book and follow your research and protocols and get help?
Okay, well, my book is on Amazon and there's an Audible coming out in June.
Great.
So a lot of people ask for that. And my website is elizbright.com. And I have
Any more?
my channel with all my videos, and they're also on Instagram. Liz_Bright_Bari is my Instagram channel. And I put a lot of my research on that.
Great. Well, I will share all that in the show notes so people make sure you go click on those links. And I know I'm speaking on the low carb cruise coming up in 3 weeks, and everyone is a keto carnivore, high fat carnivore now. And so it's funny at dinner. I've been on this cruise 3 times, and there's I think 300 people going now in our group. So it's not the whole
Wow,
cruise; it's
wow.
just a smaller group. But Dr. Ken Berry really inspired a lot more people to join. And it's funny at dinner every night. My mom's coming with me this time, who's opposite. She's the, give me the bread basket per age group. And everyone else just escargot and steak. And then we'll add like 3 plates. So it's pretty funny. And we have good turnout, but just watching people, normal people eat versus this group over here. It's
Yeah.
like, don't give us a bread basket, just give us extra meat. Go for it. So thanks so much. We'll look out for you and follow you and continue to learn more, because I always talk about how chronic stress impacts the whole you from the inside out. And I think really addressing the stress, as well as, not taking more supplements and taking Band-Aids, but dealing with how you react to things and supporting stress management techniques. But what we eat is so important, but how and when. And you're telling us, as I keep hearing more, not so much fasting, especially for the aging athlete and the female athlete who's trying to build her hormones, not lose them all.
Right, right. Got to keep making
Yeah.
them out of cholesterol.
Yes. Thanks so much for your wisdom. You're amazing.
Thank you, Debbie.